There we go. Welcome back. Thank you for staying with us this far from that political conversation. We now want to move on to our family check topic of discussion today, and we welcome you to be part of this conversation. Remember, our communication platform still remains open. On Twitter, the hashtag is Good Morning Kenya. At KBC Channel 1 remains to be the official station handle. My handle is at Jane Womboy. Now, thank you to everyone who's already checked in so far. Selector Arafat, I appreciate you seeing there. I can see our super producer, Mr. Ben Kamote pale Twitter. William Waburi anasema when I grow old, I don't want to be dormant, a volcano where I may be likely to erupt in the future. All right, that is William Waburi, always tuned in. Thank you to everyone who's also retweeting all our feeds. We thoroughly appreciate you. But please check in. We'd love to know which part of Kenya you are watching us from. Robinson McBride, I see you pale Twitter. Let me just refresh my feed. Now on PDU, asante sana kwa kutune in. Young Professor, shukran sana for being with us. Jeff, thank you so much for tuning in. United Zone, sijui ni United Mgani? But thank you so much for being with us this far. Keep talking to us. We welcome you to be part of this discussion. Now, as mentioned earlier on in the intro, today on our Family Check segment, we are going to be talking about how to handle disappointment. And when you talk about disappointment, it's a very big topic. But today we want to narrow it down to post-exam stress. And this is specifically exam result-related stress. Just the other week, we had the KCSE results put out. So many grades were attained, and there was a grade that each individual had. But now for many people that did not get the grades that they want, and especially our children, they are in a state of disarray. They are disappointed, and they probably do not know how to handle themselves during this time. You know, feelings of guilt, worry, disappointment, being left out is what is dominant as they are experiencing this time and space that we are in. So today we are here to have this conversation. It is necessary to have this conversation because, you know, just going back to that space when I got my results, it's not what I was thinking I was going to get, but you got what you got. So what is the next step to move on from that point? And today we have two guests with us to help us with this conversation. In studio, we have with us Penina Maluli, who is the director of Stir with Pearl. Karibu sana, Penina.
Asante.
Thank you for always making time to be with us here on Good Morning Kenya.
Yeah.
And also joining us via Zoom this morning from here in Nairobi, we have Fred Abok, who is a mentor, motivational speaker, and a counseling psychologist as well. Good morning, Abok. Thank you for being with us.
Oh, asante sana, Jen. It's nice to have to be here on the line. Thank you so much for the invite.
Absolutely. Now, let me just start with you, Penina, here in studio. You know, when we talk about disappointment, for most people, disappointment is not something that we like experiencing. But from your standing, why is disappointment a necessary part of life?
Okay, disappointment is supposed to be something that comes after what you are expecting does not come through to you. Mm-hmm. As you have said, we are going to exams. It's like someone, when they were reading and what they're expecting and the school that they were in, yes, they were having a very high expectation, the parents and even the principals. But if you check at this time, you will see that there is a very big difference on what people usually expect, which school comes up and which comes down. So there is a lot of disappointment among most of them. Yes. And now this disappointment, when it has hit you, if you are not able to overcome it, and you are not able to, the people around you does not give you support, you go to depression. And usually what we need to narrow down this morning is about the parents, because the parent is the person who will cause this child either to take poison, yes, drop themselves in the dams if we have had such cases, because we have had very bad cases where somebody had what they got, they didn't get home, they dropped themselves in a dam. Others had to take poison because they know who they are going to face at home. So this is the time that parents, we need to calm down, yes, because the period has not also been very easy. Education was not as it was, and even the process was quite different.
Okay.
Yes.
Now let me come to you, Abok. You know, just looking at the same aspect, you know, disappointments being a necessary part of life. Why is this important for us as a people to experience disappointment along the journey?
Okay. Okay.
Let me
Thank you
get
so much.
to hear from Abok first before we get back to Penina. Abok.
Yes. Hi, how are you? Thank you so much. I think it's important to understand that life is made up of dynamics, and it is inevitable to understand that in those dynamics, there are times that things will flow our way, and there are times that things will go off our way. When they go off our way, the issue is not how they go off our way, but the issue is how do we respond when they don't go off our way. Disappointments are inevitable because disappointments are learning circumstances that help us to get to understand how to both deal with life, but also how to maneuver through the challenges of life and even be better people in life. So disappointment should not be something that is locked out of our environment, but needs to be accommodated because it's also an avenue for success. You know, I said disappointment is another name for an appointment. So wherever you see a disappointment, you need to get yourself ready for an appointment at a certain point. So disappointment are inevitable. Nothing, everything that you see on the face of the earth today must have gone through a disappointment first. Any perfect thing, whether it's industry, whether it's marriage, whether it's academics, someone to see them on that particular level must have gone through a disappointment scenario at one point or the other.
All right. Now, let's get to understand, when we talk about disappointment, and especially with results and exam related, parents have such a huge role in ensuring that they don't blow, this exam stress out of proportion for their children. So let's start looking at things that we as parents should stop doing. And number one, it is result shaming. And this is something that I found to be very prevalent in so many people that I've interacted with. We have parents who shame their children because of the results that they got. Why is this very detrimental, and it contributes to further disappointment within the child?
You know the disappointment is double. It comes to the parent, it comes to the child. Because when the child has not done well, the parent also is disappointed. And exactly disappointment is like a deferred hope. You had hopes, but they are deferred, and that makes your heart sick. And when your heart is sick, you may not be able, when your body is sick,
yes,
the doctor will treat you. When your soul is down, you can be done some therapy. But when your heart is sick, it is not easy. So that is when now we need now to come to accept what has happened, because it doesn't matter what has happened. Life has to continue. And it's good to have an open mind as a parent and as a child. Have an open mind, because if he has got a C minus and you are expecting a A, there's room for bridging those relevant subjects, or go for a diploma.
Yes.
Because if this child, you depress them and they die or even get into drugs, you have lost a child. So this is a time now to preserve what we have. Oh, we have lost, but we need to preserve what we can be able to hold.
Okay.
It has to be a joint effort from the parents and even the society. Because sometimes you find people around you. That's why you are told to avoid people who speak negative, because they kind of speak bile. Bile is when you stir up that bile in you. And it also is like taking salt and rubbing it on your wood. Why should you accept that? Life is personal. You make a choice. I don't want to listen to these people. I choose to move and have an open mind, and you'll be able to move on. And
right,
both sides have to accept the situation and move on.
All right. Abok, let me come to you, still looking at the same aspect, just looking at things that we need to stop doing as parents. And number one, I have found that result shaming is something that most parents do, even to a very subconscious level, but it's very detrimental when it comes to our children's well-being.
Very important, Jane. I think it's important to understand that success is not a final, because failure is not part. But to shame results is to minimize life based on a particular incident or an event. Life is dynamic. The fact that someone failed on a particular area does not mean that they are failure in life. So when you're shaming them, you are actually telling them that their life is surmounted to that one particular incident, that maybe something that have happened, or may have not got it right, and you're surmounting it onto that. It is more important to understand that the cosmotability of life depends on the discipline that someone has. And failure is a reflection of what did not go right. So when you begin to narrow it down into shaming it, you are actually surmounting life to that particular incident. The fact that Usain Bolt did not win 100 meters one time does not mean that he's not a good runner. Maybe he had a muscle or the other thing. You can just encourage that person to give it a try next time, or give them an option. And what parents need to understand is that the dynamism of life is based in such a way that you should devoid of competitiveness and approach it holistically, so that the child can see the avenue not based on one particular angle, but on a holistic dimension. So I do not support shaming of results, but I would rather instead encourage parents to holistically encourage their children and be able to motivate them to be able to diversify in what they're doing.
Now, okay, from that point, let me just also still stick with you, Abok, and look at the next aspect, and this is all about comparison, and this boils down to even comparing your children to their siblings and the results that they got. Comparing your child's current results to their siblings' previous results, why is this a no-no for parents, and we need to just stop doing this?
It's important to understand as a parent that every time that you give birth to a child, every child is unique. That's why you discover that you do not give birth to them the same way, they do not grow the same way, and of course they do not respond to life the same way. Now, comparison is minimizing your child or stereotyping them to behave in a certain manner that their colleagues do. Now, when you're comparing children, you are actually denying them the opportunity to be themselves and bring out in them. So comparison limits the ability of dynamism of a child to explore life regardless of what is unique in them, and ascertain the compatibility that they can be able to bring within the family. When you're comparing a child, you are actually making them to limit the deep gem that is inside of them, and so they try to be basically like the others you're comparing with them. They may not be good in school, but they're good in sports. They may not be good in sports, but they're good in their discipline. So you need to look at every child based on some of the giftings and the dynamics that they have, and be able to allow them to thrive in those dynamics rather than comparing. So comparison is a no for a family to be able to thrive.
All right, let me also come to you, Penina, just looking at the same aspect of comparing your child's current results with maybe their siblings or neighbors or a distant relative's result. This being a very detrimental factor to our children's coping with the results that they got.
And that is very wrong, because you can never compare someone with another. Because I can give you a case study that I took this morning of a lady who happened to repeat during standard 7, repeated standard 7 twice, Form 6 twice, and when she just got a scholarship to go to the US, she got pregnant. and the parents were like, so do you want to get married or you want to go to school? She said, I want to go to school. She got a scholarship to India, got back there, stayed there for 5 years, and came and became a very senior person in the government. And now she's retired. And I was looking at, surely, if these parents were looking at, this is a true failure, standard 7 twice, standard Form 6 twice, and now you are pregnant, and the scholarship is ready. Some people will just tell you, walk out of my home. We need to have, as parents, we need to be able to calm down and look at our children and even study them and know their strengths and their weaknesses. There are people who are not meant to for going too much in education, but they will be very strong in another area. And maybe they come to become the people that will take care of that family in a way that you could not be able to understand. If you start looking at neighbors, parents ask one problem which you don't understand. Like, I'm looking at you as my colleague. What did your child get? So I'm trying to compete with you, but I'm hurting my child. So anything that you say at that time when the results are out, those words that you speak at this time, they may hurt that child and never forgive you and never tell you.
All right. Now,
Yes.
still looking at that aspect of, comparing the results, there comes in another aspect, and this is something that might not be as prevalent, but it's something that is still there, and it is silence. Parents who don't say anything at all about the child's results, and especially if they are not what they hoped that the child would get. Being silent.
It is the worst. That is the worst. It kills. Because the child does not know what next move you are taking.
Yeah.
And you are also killing yourself by being silent. Because when you are silent, there is poison coming inside you, and which is also killing you. So the best thing is just to talk. Have a family conversation, have another table, and see which is the way forward, because there's a solution. And as my colleague here said, disappointment is an appointment in the other way. You never know after this. Maybe you could have gone this way, and you were supposed to go this way through a diploma and get somewhere better.
Okay.
Yes.
Abok, looking at that aspect of being silent, and I can already see somebody who's saying silence is death for our children. Just paraphrasing, just to get TV-friendly language, silence is death for our children when it comes to our results from parents. Looking at this aspect of parents choosing to be quiet and not say anything to their children about the results that they got, and especially if they're not results that they hoped the child would get.
Great. It's important, Jane, parents to understand that God has given them a responsibility. The number one is priest over the children. Priesthood is an environment of a responsibility of governing your child by nourishing them, assuring them that they belong and they are worth, and it's possible with them, and they can make it regardless of these challenges. The number two thing is that parents are supposed to be prophets of their children. Prophets in that they need to call out the best in their children. They need to call the doctor out of them. They need to call the profession out of them. They need to call the greatness out of them. So when a parent gets silent, when a child either fails exam, they are actually, number one, to them, but also number two, they are doing a tremendous service to their children in that they deny their children the opportunity to know their place in the society, live along the family. Now, a parent is very essential in that when you speak a word, that word goes forth. The Bible is clear of things that words the parents have spoken into their children, and their children became those words. The society is about your parents speaking, and your parent can tell you, I see engineer in you, I see greatness in you, and then you begin to work on that. And that's why we say that parents are lions in their children, in that whenever they speak, there's a confidence that comes out of their children, and there's an affirmation that comes out. So it is detrimental for a parent to be silent, especially in time of crisis and disappointment.
Absolutely. Now that brings us to another aspect, and this is about forced repetition. Just from what you have said, when we have, as parents, we force our children to repeat the class because they didn't get the grade that we parents wanted them to get. Is this something you would tell parents to stop doing, or you would advise them to do it depending on the situation?
There's the issue of if you have not got the right grade, you go to the TVETs. TVETs is where you go, maybe you go, you know them, eh?
Yeah, technical.
So, the technical. So, it is supposed, I don't think it's supposed to be an issue of, like, using force. It's good to dialogue with your children. Because at that level, if you start dialoguing with them, they will become decision makers even in their own life. But if you start pushing and using it's like when some parents will say, I want you to become a doctor, and they want to push you to become a doctor. Yeah. And maybe by birth, you're a saloonist, and you'll become a very rich person as a saloonist. So sometimes it's not good to push. It's good to repeat if it will make any difference, but don't use force. I don't think it's good for use force.
Don't forcefully make your child retake the class.
Especially this time, when you use force, you destroy.
All right.
Yeah.
Abok, do you agree with Penina when it comes to forced repetition or exams, even for that matter, that parents make their children go through just because they didn't get the grades that they think are right?
I agree with Penina 100%. The Bible says, come let us reason together. Now, life is about reasoning, and reasoning is about pointing out the blind spots and helping somebody to have a directive of what they need to do. We are counseling. Counseling is what I do part of my day. I do not tell people what to do. I direct them, I guide them, and I support them into what they need to do. The today's young people are looking for someone to reason together with them and help them to be able to get the direction. When you reason together with your child, you help to illuminate the things that you may have not been able to see. And then when it picks up a direction, it feels responsible for the direction. When you force a child to repeat a class, you are actually number one. Right now, schools are going on. It will be older than so there is an element of feeling out of place. Now, education has a lot of a student. When the psychology is distorted, the mental key for this person to be able to reason and bring out the best is actually challenging. So let us reason with the student, with the child. Is there something that is optional, or if they are they repeating out of their own initiative and not you forcing them? Let them be in a position to see the need, not.
All right. Now, let's move on from what parents should stop doing, because they're not just here to point out the problems. Mm-hmm. We're also here to help out with solutions.
Yes.
And for those who may not know how to handle this situation, we are here to give you pointers in regards to what you can do. And number one, it starts with acceptance.
Yes.
How far does accepting your child's result take the both of you when it comes to alleviating the pressure that comes with disappointments? Let me start with you, Penina.
Accepting is the key thing. Because whether you say no or yes, life has to continue.
Yes.
This has happened and it has happened. So when you accept and know that there is no way to change this, but we have to move on, you will have a solution. And the first thing is to make sure this child, you speak to them in a way that they feel you accept them the way they are. Mm-hmm. Because you may also destroy them. Because there are two ways. The sooner you accept it, you know it's better for you. Mm-hmm. And you may find someone who may go into drugs and even doing things that will cause them forget what has happened. Because nobody is supporting them. But if the parents and the people around that person will show that child, it has happened and we support you, you can move on and you can become even a better person after this. It will be very easy for them. But if you leave that person alone, that's where you find suicide, you find things that has happened. Somebody gets into drug and maybe that person was very, very excellent in education. Yes. Something happened during the exams. Maybe he got a shock during the exams at that time, and he could do better later. So if you destroy them because of your expectation as a parent and expectation in the society, you destroy your child. Okay. And this is your property. It is yours. So it is you to preserve.
All right.
Yes, so acceptance is very key.
All right. Abok, looking at the aspect of acceptance, and especially from a psychological standing, what consequences does just acceptance being the first step has, and especially looking towards the good of the child?
Great. Two aspects psychologically. Number one, acceptance reflects the element of an in that this you own that yes, this term I did. How many people do not attend? How many people chicken out because of fear? But you made an attempt, and you are accepting that an effort that I put in place. I mean, I'm not worried the ultimate goal, but there is something that I put in place. But two is that you accept in that you resonate and you take note that you own the process, and you say, these are my results. They may not be pleasing, but they are mine. They may not be lucrative, but they are mine. They may not be the standard that but they are mine. And if they are mine, what can I be able to do with them? It is out of acceptance that now you get to adjust. And adjustments come from the point of ownership. When you own something, you begin to say that is lucrative and admirable to yourself.
Now, I like the fact that you brought in that aspect of acceptance leads to the next stage. And this is all about now involving your child in this conversation. And number two, getting to hear your child's opinions, regardless to whether they like it or not. Let me just pick up from where you left off, Obok. Getting to involve your child in this conversation and just hearing what they have to say as part of what you should do as a parent. Why is that vital?
It's different to involve child on the process because they should understand where it pinch most. Now, being of disappointment felt by the child more than the parent, as much as the parent may actually feel the feeling, but the children feels it more. And both of them, they get to craft the means and the ways and the know-how on how to actually be able to make it better. When it clicks onto them, we always tell students on our group counseling that results are feedback. If you get it well, you don't do it for your parents, you do it to yourself. When we involve our children in the process, we guide them, or we get to understand their way of crafting the way out and how they're actually moving. How are they going to advance in this situation? Because you cannot get yourself dry up on where you are. You need to move to a certain state. And moving to a certain state, it involves the individual to take a step. Whether in faith, mentally, psychologically, you are the one to take a step and move on to another.
All right. Penina, just looking at the same aspect of involving your child in this conversation in terms of moving forward and not just making decisions for them based on what you think is available or what they can do with their grade. How vital is it to involve them and just get to hear their opinions about their grades and what they hope to get to do moving forward?
Yeah, it is very important to have a discussion with them because you know when you engage your child, you even come to realize that person is wiser than you thought, because the kind of words they will bring out when they are free, because now they have been given the position even to express themselves, so the fear has been taken away. They will be able to express themselves and even bring out what they never knew they have in themselves. And this will lead them to be able to know what do they want. Because even when they are at school, they are told to choose their careers. But sometimes they're not guided the right way. But when that person has gone through pain and comes back to their normal levels, they are able to know exactly what they want. And they'll be able now to make a decision. Can you allow me maybe to bridge these maybe 2 subjects that I failed? And then I'll be able to do my degree, what I could have done. Or let us agree that I go for a diploma, but not at TVET. But if it depends on how it was. But when you put it on the table, there'll be peace between you and the child, and there will be a flow.
All right.
Yes.
Now, this next aspect involves parents mostly. And we have parents who go about telling everyone about their child's grades. And this might not be something that the child is open to, because, again, it could have been a grade that they were not hoping to get. So would you advise parents to just be careful with who they tell their child's grades to, because you never know the intentions of the other person?
Yeah, sometimes it's not as good as people think, that just opening up what your child has gone through. Maybe to you, you're happy.
Yeah.
Maybe to them, they're not happy. And when you discuss this and they discuss with their children, and maybe he goes out and meets someone who, as we have said, some people are toxic in how they speak, then someone will woo that child. And maybe you say it out of good thing. The way you are talking, you are saying it out of good heart.
Yeah.
So it's good to be wise, to know who do you share with about your children. It's not necessary. Yeah. Not unless you know exactly what they want.
Okay. Well, just looking at that aspect of parents who could be happy with the grades that the child got, but the child, on the other hand, is not happy with the same grades. So you find the parent is going about telling people, my daughter got a C+, my daughter got a B, my daughter got a C-, very proudly, but they are not considering what the child might think. Is this something you would advise parents to be careful of, especially from a psychological standing?
True. I want to look at this from 2 perspectives. Number one is that when it comes to the parent psychological dynamic, especially when it is success. It's a bit challenging to deny the parents an opportunity to express their pride, their appreciation, and the dynamic. But of course, what I always advise parents is to be moderate, because not everybody you are sharing with has the same joy and the same way you are looking at the thing. So be moderate on the way you are sharing, because sometimes that is not what your child expects. But also, why can't you also take time and agree with your son or your daughter? What you got, should I share it? What do you think about? Because when you got the permission of the child, because he is the owner of the result, it goes a long way. The government has a spokesman. That means that things need to come out through a channel, and they need to be authenticated and validated before they are communicated. And so let the child give you the permission to share. If they have not given you the permission, please avoid sharing it. You will actually be helping on the psychological dynamic and the well-being of that particular child. But also number two is when you share, it is an avenue of opening a downside for your children. Remember, success or disappointment is not the issue, but the reaction is the issue. What are people saying? What are the things that comes into your ears? The things that will come to the ears of this child as a result of your sharing will determine the progress and the growth of this child. So it is important to not open that avenue so that it doesn't open a window that will be very challenging to control some of the dynamics that will come in as a result of it.
Okay, now looking at those dynamics that may spill in from this path that you as a parent open, when it comes to making available avenues for your child to be able to communicate effectively, would you suggest to even get professional help and even counseling for your child to help them navigate during that time, and especially if they are, you can see they're leaning towards the disappointment side? Is this something you would advise?
I would advise professional counseling, because sometimes some of these things are psychological. And Jane, I deal with a lot of issues of mental health. And when I get to dig into some of the root cause of some of these mental issues, they came as a result of the way some challenges were handled on the initial stages. And so it is important to get a professional to handle some of these issues, because the repercussions could be dire in the field. And when they are handled professionally, in that they can be guided on in how to deal with the pragmatic situation and get the better results out of them. And so I suggest that a professional counselor is important. But also, as a parent, you are the first step that the child meets. So try to be as positive as you can, because maybe some parents cannot be able to afford professional counseling, but they can speak positivity to their child. Because every time positive walking, there is an element of towards positivity.
All right. Penina, you say on that, as a parent, getting to a point where you accept that there's only so much that I can do for my child. Maybe at this point, I should get them some professional help. Is that an avenue or a path that you would advise parents to consider when it comes to helping their children post-exam stress?
Yeah, it is very important. If you feel that the way you address your child, you are not accessing that child, and maybe you are not giving the solution, you may get professional, or you may get someone who is close. Could be the pastor, could be the youth pastor in their church.
But someone the child trusts?
Someone that the child trusts. Maybe you may take them to a professional, a psychologist, then they will fear even to express themselves. But if you get someone that they trust and you see they are close to, they'll be able to open up.
Okay.
Yes.
Now, when it comes to helping your child move forward and making a plan together and just looking at the available options, at how soon do you think parents should start looking at this option? Just looking at that space after you've gotten the results, how soon would you advise parents to start looking at available options for the child with the grade that they have gotten?
And immediately after the exam, the parent also gets struck. and they are also disappointed.
Yes.
So it's the first thing the parent must overcome their own disappointment and accept to be able to help their children. Now, immediately, I don't think there is need to take long, because you don't know what action the child may take. The first thing is to bring a close person.
Yes.
Is a relative, because children always have someone close in the family that they trust. That you can be able to identify such a person to be the first person to use. Yes.
All right. Now, when it comes to just reassuring your child, and let me just get your opinions on this, Abok, the role that reassurance plays from the parent, especially the role that just you as a parent reassuring your child has to do, and especially looking at the fact that you have a critical role to remind them that this is just a grade and it doesn't really determine or predict or give a future that has been cast on stone. Your parent as a reassurer for your child.
Very important to reassure the child, because on the reassure, they have anxiety. Anxiety is.
All right, we seem to have lost Abok there, but we'll be getting back with him as we draw nearing to the close of this conversation. But let me just come to you, Penina. You know, as a parent, understanding that you have a very critical role in reassuring your child, and especially with the fact that the grade that they have gotten does not mean that their future is cast on this particular stone.
Yeah, grades are just grades, and you can get other grades later, even better than that. So the most important thing as a parent, if it's my position as a parent, is to show this child that this is not the end of the road. We can get something better. So we need to sit down and agree. Do you need to repeat? Do you need to go for this or this or this? And then on a mutual ground, it will be very easy, and the child will have accepted, and it will be very easy even for them to be very happy, even if there are two or one of them. You know, you may having two candidates at the same time.
Yes.
But let's say it's one. If you have overcome that and you have been able to sit down, agree together, and say this is the way to move on, that child will be able to even help others.
Okay.
Yes.
Now, as we close this conversation, I see Kezia here on Twitter saying parents need to stop lying to their children that they passed all the classes that they had. And I'm sure most of us have gotten to hear these stories. You know, our parents never failed. They need to start painting a realistic picture to our children about results. What do you have to say about this? You know, parents who have painted a very picture-perfect experience in their time when they were in that age.
Yeah, people that doesn't like to say the truth, but it's good to speak the truth. If you find even they are done better than what you did, congratulate them. I'll tell them that you did better than I did, and I accept this. So what you can be able to do better, I'll support you to do this. But now saying lies is not good. Okay. But it happens.
All right. I also see Linda saying parents should also normalize allowing their children to choose their own path. Yeah. If they want to go to college, let them go to college. If they want to start working, let them work. Si lazima kila mtu apitie college just because you did or because society dictates that. And I'm told Abok is back with us online. And maybe Abok, you could respond to this. Parents allowing their children to either seek employment immediately after high school or go to college. Allow them to do that and just not force them to do what they think they should do because society says so.
Allowing children to do what they want to do after college, if I get you right?
Yes, you know, for those who want to seek employment immediately, to be allowed to do so, and if they want to continue with college, to also be allowed to do so and not stick to the script that society has.
Yeah, I think the most important thing is to help the child to bring out the best out of them. And this can only be done when there is a proper assessment of the child by, you know,
All right, ni kama simu ya Boki imekataa tumalize show na yeye, but nonetheless, we've actually come to the end of the program. But as we close this conversation, Penina, maybe your closing remarks to our youngsters who are watching us this morning, the parents who have children who sat for either the KCP or KCSE exams, and just understanding that they have to work together to help the child move forward. What would you tell them?
Yeah, this is my final remarks to the parents. It's good to work together with the children, have a dialogue with the child, especially this time because of the pressure and the peer pressure that we have. It's not like our own times when it was not as it is today. So if it is possible, have time with the children, have dialogue with them, and talk about what is happening. For those who have failed, that's not the head of the road. That's just a grade. And maybe something happened to you during your exam and you are not able to get it. There is always a way. You can bridge, you can go to diploma, you can go to TVET, and there's always a way. And God will give you the way out.
All right,
Yes.
There you have it. I have nothing much to add on to that. We have been speaking with Penina Maluli, who is the director of Star with Pearl. And we've also been speaking with Fred Abok, who is a mentor, a motivational speaker, and a counseling psychologist as well, who had joined us via Zoom. This has been all about dealing with disappointment and more specifically, coping with exam result stress. Help your child navigate these waters, and at the end of the day, you will both live to appreciate your efforts during this space and time. On behalf of the Good Morning Kenya crew, we want to wish you a lovely day ahead. You enjoy the rest of your viewing. Be sure to join us again tomorrow morning right here on KBC for another fantastic edition of Good Morning Kenya. My name is Jen Wambui. Have a lovely day.